Hello everyone, welcome back to Philosophy Chit Chats with me, Maggie. Back by popular demand, today's subject is work, and if it can be replaced by AI or robots, should we let it? Would that be a good thing or a bad thing? Would it be utopian or dystopian? In efforts to keep my audience on their toes, I'm going to go through all of the opinions that have shaped the thesis and then tell you what we really think at the end. And by we, I mean the sponsors of today's episode, Ruffin and Green-Orset. Ever since the birth of America, work has been everything. It gives us structure throughout our entire lives, basically. But more and more philosophers are a bit split on whether work does or should provide meaning or purpose to someone's life, or if that is just a bunch of... I first want to look at an essay by Al Guinea. The argument of this essay is based on the idea that the work we do shapes who we are as people, and that's a good thing. Thinking of the alternative is usually a fun place to start, in my opinion. It was when we were talking about the death and immortal life part of the death video, if you remember. Growing up in a society where work isn't part of the structure would leave people feeling directionless. After they graduate high school or graduate college, they'd be left thinking, what now? What should I do? What's the next path if it's not working? Work is good. Work demonstrates integrity. It involves aiming for a goal and reaching it. It helps us contribute to our society, in our world, in our country. It anchors us. And as Joseph Epstein, unfortunate last name, it's okay, it's that being out of work is the surest path to self-loathing. Noonan, I hope I'm saying that name correctly, takes this one step further. He thinks that if we didn't work, we would all have existential crises. Work isn't just about earning money so you can eat or feed your kids or buy a house, but it's about creating skills and making an impact on those around you. Work makes us feel important and it makes us feel needed. He says that labor is not work for the boss, but work for each other. He thinks that what gives us identity and grounds us in reality is in the contributions we make to one another. The third person I want to talk about is someone named Danaher? That sounds like Danaher offers some points that are pro-work, but they take it in a different point of view that I think is really convincing. Work doesn't just have to be seen in the context of something to do or something to keep us busy. Work and fulfillment can go hand in hand. In other words, it doesn't have to be the typical 9-to-5 office jobs. It could be jobs with creativity involved, with helping people involved, with caregiving. Danaher also jumped on the existential crisis train. Now for some counter arguments. For these, I'm first going to look at Nietzsche, mainly because I love saying his name. Nietzsche. I think I'm saying that right. He wasn't a fan of work, but mainly because he thought that things outside of work were more valuable and society didn't recognize that. He said that humans would rather do something that meant nothing than just do nothing. Nietzsche, all the way back in 1887, predicted this modern work ethic. I pulled this from an essay by J.P. Darrenty titled Nietzschean Work. But as many philosophers do, Nietzsche kind of straddles the fence just a little bit. I believe it started to rain. He does talk about work in a much less negative light in different works of his. He talks about the difference between authentic and inauthentic work, and I think this contributes a lot to our thesis. He would see inauthentic work as work that just pays well. He sees work that is simply a means to an end, the end being money, as a negative thing, but he does find that working with pleasure is a thing. Bertrand Russell is another person who talked about the idea of idleness being a good thing. I think he titled it In Praise of Idleness as an argument against not working is the fact that idleness will creep in. He basically argued that the amount of work that's going on is overkill. It isn't necessary. He argues that a 4-hour workday is totally plausible and that we would spend the rest of the time doing fulfilling stuff like art and music and appreciating those things. He argued that leisure is vital to finding happiness. And so I think this is where our thesis can now be concluded. A future where machines and robots and AI could cut out the need for work entirely would be more dystopian than utopian. The good part is giving people more time for creativity and passions, relationships, and hobbies, and leisure. But the challenges that go with that, the finding purpose and staying active, would far outweigh the potential benefits. Our main conclusion is that work is a good thing, particularly when coupled with this idea of passion and meaning. It's not a bad thing to say that work shapes who you are, especially if that work is something meaningful, which it has possibility to be. It's kind of like finding that fine line of doing something you love so that you become something that you love. Self-esteem isn't just defined as like how you think you look or how you feel on a certain day, but it's actually a pretty complex psychological subject. It's defined as like the overall internal evaluation of someone's worth, and it's conscious sometimes, but a lot of times subconscious. Self-esteem is literally a reflection of what someone thinks about themselves, if a person likes themselves, if a person even respects themselves. Major contributors to self-esteem also are the belief in someone's like abilities and talents. Achievements is a big one. It's hard to find those things outside of work or outside of a work-like structure, because a lot of times work starts off as a necessity but then becomes a big part of our identities and ultimately makes us feel pretty good. I definitely think that work standards can be lowered, maybe work days shortened, maybe a little bit extra vacation time. But if we had access to this time off all the time, I don't think as humans we are capable of being productive. I think I've said all I need to say. I think I've said too much, actually. Thanks, guys. Mate's got this thing. It's okay. My group mates got to